Hello and welcome to episode 46 of Adult Music, the podcast with music for the mature mind. On this mic is your co-host Russ, and on that mic is Mike.
Hi, Mike. Mike on the mic, as the Beastie Boys said long ago. How are you doing, Russ?
I'm doing pretty good.
How's your post-holiday mood?
It's
cold here, isn't it?
It's cold. There's other things going on that I don't want to participate in.
Right, there's that.
I'm just kind of getting through it all with lots of good music. And,
yeah, me too.
On the few nice days we had, get some sunshine. And in between that, a little bit of booze and tasty food. And I guess that's all I can ask for,
Right. I was listening to the Jazz United podcast, and Nate Chinen, who's a jazz critic that I really like.
Oh, I listened to the beginning of that, as you said.
Yeah, because he talked about his he wants to listen to more music this
that's
year.
his resolution,
right? And he already does that. And I guess, I don't know that I want to listen to more, because I'm always listening to a lot anyway. Yeah. But another thing we learned about him on that episode is that he's a big album collector, mostly vinyl in his case. But, he's kind of like my analog, I guess, because I collect a lot of CDs.
Right.
And it looks like this year is going to be a big CD collecting year, too.
Yeah,
now that this podcast is going, this is getting rough, folks.
I went
we
through
need an income.
From our year-end best list of 2021, I ordered a bunch of, CDs that I decided I liked enough. Yeah. I'm going to keep listening to them. And then the last 2 weeks, I had to pass through downtown. So one great thing about Japan, I should say, the record stores, music stores for CDs or vinyl have always been really great in Japan. However, that's not the case for new CDs anymore.
Really?
Our Tower Records doesn't have much. The other music stores have downsized. Basically, you're better off just not even browsing, ordering online. However, the used stores are really some of them have bigger selections than the new stores too. So you can always go in and find some interesting things. And this week I picked up a few more interesting used jazz releases. What's nice about the jazz is a lot of the used ones will be like Japanese reissues from the 90s, like on EMI, and the mastering and the sonics are great. They sound really good, even if they're old recordings from the 50s or 60s. And a lot of them you cannot buy new any longer. They're out of production, and they're not on streaming. So I got some old Ben Webster, and I got a few other. I got a Stan Getz recording that's not available on streaming, and so it's sort of filling the gap in between what I have and what I can listen to in streaming. So I still find looking through the used items every month or two is worth my time.
Right. I don't buy CDs here because I think they're a little overpriced actually in Japan. I buy them from classical CDs. I buy from Presto Music in England. And last year I bought so many CDs from them. They must kind of know of me, they must talk about me there by now. I've never been there, but
I believe we were discussing. We saw that article that for the first time since 2004, CD sales increased last year. Now I don't know if that's the Corona effect of people being at home, or if that's the adult music effect on you.
It could just be. I may have done that by myself, everybody, because I'm going to need to move again because I'm not going to have enough space for these CDs, and I want them all around me too. I don't want them like in storage or anything because I do go back to them. I'm kind of like Umberto Eco with books, although I have a lot of books too. Yeah. But he's just had like thousands and thousands of books, in his house.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, what I like about books and CDs is they're quiet the rest of the time, when you're not reading them inside your head or listening to them. So,
unlike other people, people we work with, people we may live with, that sort of
humans in general.
Yeah, pets, they don't have to be walked; they just behave themselves. They're always there to make you happy.
Tonight, we've got a real narrowed theme episode. Well, not too narrow, but it's another string thing.
It's another string thing. Yeah.
But before we get to that, as I said, this is episode 46. We're getting close to 50.
Yeah.
And so 50, we'll have to do something special again to celebrate. I think we'll need another face-to-face live.
Oh, yeah, that could be cool.
Yeah, for 50.
All right, now, this time, if you're going to do a barbecue, I'm only going to get one kind of meat this time.
Oh, you only want one? Okay.
Last time we got sausages and steak. It was just too much. It was great. I enjoyed it a lot, but I was kind of,
All right.
I was like, yeah, probably should have just chosen one of these. You know?
Yeah, it was good. I don't know. Maybe we'll just get two kinds of sausage next time. We'll see.
Yeah, that sauce you put on the sausage, it was like real cacciatore type sauce there.
That's my own sauce recipe.
You'd be a good hunter if you were so inclined. Yeah.
Yeah, all I need is some weapons. They're hard to come by in Japan. Yeah, with some rabbits and some cacciatore sauce and...
yeah, so this week we're specifically like guitar, aren't we?
That's right.
We're kind of.
Guitar.
Plucked string instruments,
Plucked, that's right.
Yeah. Well, it's guitar, and then we have a Vihuela one, so that's, which is an early guitar. Yeah.
Yeah, well, before we get to that, the usual reminder to our listeners that in the episode description for all these guitar-esque recordings, you're going to find links to Spotify and Apple Music if you want to check them out while you're listening, after you're listening, or even before, although it's probably too late if you're hearing me say this now. And right at the top of the description, there's a link to the full episode playlist. That's all the recordings in one place, about 6.5 hours worth, I think, on Deezer, our preferred streaming platform. We can listen in CD quality, and you can also follow our podcast there at username Adult Music Podcast. Now, whatever platform you're listening to us on, and we're on pretty much everything, if you can't see the full description or the links don't work, come over and check us out on our host site, Podbean, where everything is neat and orderly and the links are all active. If you enjoy the podcast, please do follow or subscribe on whatever app or platform you're listening to us on. If you take just a moment to give us a ranking, write us a review, that helps us get listed in the browsing categories, which helps us get more listeners, and we'd appreciate that. Other than that, if you've got anything you'd like to contact us directly about, any comments or questions, our email address is adultmusicpodcast, that's all one word, @gmail.com, and we'd love to hear from you.
You know, we've been doing this for almost a year now, and I'm still getting people coming up to me that we know, coming up to me saying, you know, you do a podcast? Yeah. How could they not know? I'm all over my social media, you know, I'm kind of always kind of mentioning it, you know. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's one of those things,
does it happen to you?
Know. No, because I don't really want anybody I know to listen to it. Okay. I mean, you know, usually when I start talking about music, people's eyes glaze over and, you know, they
that's why we started the podcast.
Yeah, so.
Because we figured we'd talk to people whose eyes wouldn't glaze over. They could just tune in and turn us off whenever they want. We figured,
you know, somewhere around the world, there have to be other people who like music as much as we do and are interested in, you know.
We should have a big adult music party one day. Like we go to like some spot somewhere in the world and like invite everybody, all of our listeners to come.
That'd be a lot of fun.
Whatever. Yeah, a big listening party.
You know, I think there's so many podcasts today. If you're famous, you can make a podcast about anything, right? I mean,
right.
But if you're not famous,
people do.
Yeah, they do. But if you're not famous, it's got to be looking for that, you know, special little niche of people who like
or
what
you can just talk about anything and no one listens to you. It's just, you know, that's not a problem.
It's not a problem.
People like putting their voice out there. You find some kindred spirits.
That's right. And at least, even if you get tired of listening to us, you should just check out the recordings every week, because we spend a lot of time searching through all the new stuff to bring the best to you. So what's up first for string things here?
Yeah, string things. I should mention before I get into this, our selections for this week are they're good. But I don't know if it's that I felt like kind of lukewarm about the music itself, or because I've been listening to all of our favorite recordings from last year for the last 2 weeks. And now I'm kind of like coming down because we're hearing things that they're good, but they're not going to be. I don't think these are going to be on my year-end list. But okay. So I think I'm kind of coming down. And then there's the cold weather, and I'm feeling grouchy. So listeners, if I sound a little grouchier this week than normal, you might want to. You might want to think that this album was probably 2 notches better than I'm saying it is. Okay, because. I don't know. Anyway,
kind of post-Christmas depression or something.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know. There's nothing going on. It's cold. It's still dark. I don't know any of these things. I just talked to a friend in Thailand yesterday. It was nice and sunny there, and I can't go. So
that's right.
There you go. All right. So our first recording in classical this week is we're going to go back to Josquin. Now he's the 400th anniversary. Was 400? No, it's more than that. It might have been the 400th anniversary. I don't want to say it wrong, though. 400th anniversary of his... No, that would be 1600. It's got to be like 500th anniversary of his...
before that.
Of his birth. Yeah, he's the Renaissance. See, I don't have these notes in front of me now. The 500th anniversary of his birth is over, but we're still... This is an album from last year, actually, too. The end of the year. I think it came out in October or November. Called the Josquin Songbook. Music for 2 voices and... Vihuela. Now the Vihuela is kind of like it's a guitar-like. It's kind of like a lightish kind of lute, I guess you could call it, or lute if you want to pronounce it that way.
I think in those days, if you wanted the Josquin songbook, you'd have to put it in order for those hand-copied versions of it, right?
Those gigantic ones that you could drop on someone's head and crush them. Kind of, Yeah. Well, This is kind of interesting because the music on this disc was, I guess, written for it's polyphonic originally, and they've sort of altered it here to fit for these 2 voices and Vihuela. Now the 2 singers on this, and one of the reasons I wanted to hear this, Maria Cristina Kiehr is the soprano, and I really like her, so I kind of was this kind of drew me in. The tenor is. I don't know how to say this guy's name. Jonatan Alvarado. I don't know if it's Jonatan, it's Jonathan, kind of in English, right? And the vihuelist is Ariel Abramovich. Okay. And
this is on the
Glossa label.
I don't think we've done anything on Glossa yet, have we?
Yeah, they're generally... They generally do a lot of older music like this, Baroque and Renaissance, and they generally get good recording. But for me... Well, it's interesting. It was an issue here, but it was an unusual issue. Let me get into this. All right, so most of this album features works by Josquin Desprez, and there were 1 or 2 by some of his contemporaries. The first piece is a secular piece. Now Josquin's most famous for his masses and religious music, sacred music, but this is a secular piece, Nymphe Nape and Circumdederunt me. Now, this is kind of the Renaissance technique of setting 2 songs at the same time. So one voice is singing one song, and the other voice is singing the other at the same time. And there are all these little techniques to make the words kind of overlap or peek out through the texture. Okay. So Maria Cristina Kiehr starts this one out. Okay, so let me just get into the sound of this right away. The Vihuela sounds up front, and it sounds really clear. It's really at a perfect distance from the mic. You can kind of hear its gentleness and all of its detail, but it's not too close where you can hear finger squeaking or the attack on the strings. It was a beautiful sound, and I really liked the Vihuelist. But Maria Cristina Kiehr, the soprano, sounds like she's standing in a tunnel. It's kind of a... Did you get this effect?
Now you
have a nicer stereo than me, so I wanted to hear for your...
My take, I was surprised at the sound of this, and so when I looked at the CD notes, and it's recorded in this historic cathedral, but it doesn't sound like a cathedral sound.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't sound like they're singing out in the open, like where the altar would be, or in front of it, or anything like that.
And I was thinking, because the Vihuela does not project a lot, I'm thinking, so in order to get the right balance, they must have, used distancing for the singers, but the effect is, well, I was thinking once I knew they were in a cathedral, I thought that maybe the vocalists are like, they put them in the confessionals or something.
Yeah, it just kind of sounded like muffled or something.
Doors.
There's something like constricting, the voices aren't like just blooming out towards the, those high vaulted ceilings or,
So there is a room sound to the recording, but it's not what you would normally, think of as a cathedral sound if you've heard other vocal works or instrumental things that get that natural room reverb. It just sounds that the vocalists are distant.
Yeah, to me it sounded, it was distant, but it also sounded like there was some kind of effect on it. It sounded like artificial to me. Now, as we know from the Wranitzky recordings, I'm always wrong about these things. And ironically, I used to work as an audio engineer. It was one of my first jobs out of college, so apparently I didn't learn much. But
well, I can say, I'm not saying it's bad, it's just different.
It's not bad.
It's different. So it doesn't result in, a balance of the sounds, but I think some of the clarity in the vocalists is sort of maybe sacrificed for that sort of placement.
Yeah. I kind of think that the Vihuelas may also have been the engineer. We used to joke about this because I used to play in rock bands. You could always tell when the bass player was the engineer because the bass would suddenly be really loud in the mix and stuff like that. You always want to hear yourself. I'm joking, of course. I'm sure the engineer was one of Glossa's engineers, but I don't know. I like the overall tone of this piece with the Vihuela, and that's really the focus. That's really what I was listening to, and I'm rather a fan of Maria Cristina Kiehr's voice. I've heard her on other Baroque recordings. She has a hard, like slightly manly quality to her voice, and in Baroque, it just sounds really good in Baroque music. This is Renaissance music, of course, but her voice is a little unusual sounding, and it's very kind of clean tonally.
Yeah. This first one got me with this like octave jumps in the melody. It's it really makes you pay attention to what she's doing.
Okay, now she sings Nymph Nape, and the tenor Alvarado, I got his name right, Jonatan Alvarado sings the second song, Circumdederunt a Me. He sounds kind of muffled too. He's also in the other confessional on the other side of the room, I guess, when he comes in. Circumdederunt me means encircling me. Okay. Lovely sad work. I like the arrangement and the sense of space in the work. Track 2, Josquin again, Praeter Rerum Serium, which means in addition to the sequence of events, which with the sense of being outside them. The booklet translates it as "This is no normal scheme of things," and it's a religious text about the mystery of Jesus' birth. Would have been good for Christmas. I guess that's what it was intended for. Okay, Alvarado the tenor starts with this one, and he sounds like he's singing from a distant grotto in this one. I said there's a watery sound to the production on this, and I don't know, it sounds like a filter to my ears. But it could be the space they're singing in. It sounds enclosed, though. It doesn't sound in the open. That's the problem. Let's see. Long-held syllables with no ornamentation and accompanied by the Vihuela. This piece moves slowly, very beautiful. And in fact, the tone of this disc, I have to say, isn't going to change. All of the pieces are going to be at this speed with these singers. And the singers, especially Maria Cristina Kiehr, she doesn't do much to color her voice in this. I mean, what's she going to do? It's sort of, with this kind of music, it almost demands to be sung just straight like this. So we don't get much variety from her on this recording. Now, I do like her. She's been very good on other recordings I've heard.
This the tempo varies very little among all these pieces, and so it's very much a recording of one sort of temperament.
Right.
I did like it a lot.
I liked it too. Yeah.
But it will put you in that one certain contemplative mood. Some of it
contemplative, maybe good for falling asleep to if you're trying to doze off.
That combined with the sort of muffled sonics makes it create a unique, atmosphere, both musically and acoustically.
Certainly. Okay, there is a mass on this too, but it's not all together. And track 3 starts the mass with the Kyrie. which is the first of the 6 sections of the ordinary of the Mass. Actually, there might be more. The 6 that they usually set anyway. This is from Josquin's Missa Fortuna Desperata, which is a polyphonic work for 4 voices. Here we hear only 2 in the Vihuela. I think part of the reason why this all goes at the same tempo and has the same kind of feel to it is that we're missing the polyphonic voices. Normally, they would be providing all the variety and the different attacks they use and sort of like that. So we have less voices here. Beautifully sung on this one. The performance sounds good with exciting intervals again. Long-held vowel sounds, too. You can really luxuriate in the sound of this one. Not necessarily the sound quality, though, which still sounds the same. Okay. All right, the 4th track, Josquin de Près again, Mille Regrets. This is from Canción del Emperador. This is a secular work. And you can hear how cleanly the Vihuela is recorded on this track because it's a solo for the Vihuela. Yeah. This sounds great. I liked this one a lot. There are lyrics, by the way, for this, but they're not sung. They're printed in the booklet, though. Beautiful sense of space coming from the Vihuela's unerring rhythm. That's Ariel Abramovich. Next, we get a piece by Cristobal de Morales, Spanish composer, if I'm recalling correctly. Benedictus. This is one part of the ordinary of the Mass from his Missa Mille Regrets. I think the Now, by the way, what that means is Missa Mille Regrets. Mille Regrets would have been a song, and I think we just heard it from Josquin. That was popular, and this would be what's called a parody. Missa Mille Regrets would be a parody Mass, which means it takes the this famous tune and uses it as the cantus firmus that the rest of the voices are built around. Okay, so if you if you were to do this in modern times, maybe you would have the Hey Jude Mass, like Kyrie eleison, and that would be the right. That would be the cantus firmus that all the other harmonies would come in around. That would be horrific, wouldn't it? Although it's better than the Wake Me Up Before You Go Mass. Kyrie eleison. No, okay, stop it.
Or the Careless Whisper Mass.
Let's move on. Okay. Next. The Careless Whisper Mass.
Yes. Unless Delphian Lamar was playing it, then I would, probably.
That would be cool.
On the organ, yeah.
Playing the Careless. Oh, that's right. He did that on that album. That was great. That was good. Go back to that. It's one of our top albums of last year. Delphian Lamar, jazz organist. Anyway. Now, he's not an organist. There's an organ in his trio. Yeah. He is the organist. Yeah. Okay. All right, so anyway, from Missa Mille Regrets. Okay, next we get to track 6, Josquin again, Confiteor, from his Missa L'Homme Armé. L'Homme Armé was a really popular song. The armed man is to be feared was the theme of it, and this was a time of, lots of wars when this was written in the Renaissance era. This is a solo for Alvarado, and he's a bit distant in the mix. He's the tenor, but the quality of his voice comes through here. The room space seems to be squeezing his tone a bit, I thought. I think Alvarado fares better than Kiehr does in this ambience. Her voice is actually very present and loud, so I think she's actually more distanced than he is on this recording. She's got a bit of power, even though it's kind of like a laser-like focused sort of tone, so it's a powerful but small voice. Which seems like a paradox, but listen and you'll know what I mean. Track 7, Francisco de Peñalosa, Kyrie, from his Missa Adieu mes amours, again another popular song of the time. The recording of the vocals sound better here. They're still a little distant. Maybe my ear adjusted by this point.
This one is interesting to me because it's got like 3 sections to it.
Yeah.
They sort of
the Kyrie, Christe, and Kyrie. Yeah. They normally do it.
And then but the second one, if you listen to it, it sort of ends with what I guess later would be named the Picardy Third, right? So it didn't
notice that.
Yeah, it ends, it's kind of in a minor modality, and then it ends with a major third, and that's sort of woke me up.
Whoa.
And then it was on to the third section. I was like, oh, they probably didn't even have a name for it at that time. But
Eric Satie's Gymnopédie, number 1. I think all 3 of them might end like that. Number 1 definitely does.
But, you got that a lot in Baroque later. But
right.
And here, there's nothing like that in the rest of this. And then that one ending, it's just
brightness.
there. And I thought, whoa, oh, cool.
Yeah. I'll have to listen to that again because I do like that effect.
Yeah.
Okay, Josquin, again, Pater Noster, which is Our Father. Maria Cristina Kiehr sings this solo. And again, I'm complaining here that her vocal timbre never changes on this recording. I'd like to hear some variety at this point. After 8 tracks, I was getting a little antsy. I think, again, you have to understand that I've been listening to all of our favorite albums of last year. When I was listening to this, so I think I was a little more impatient than I normally would have been. Track 9, Josquin, Ave Maria. Welcome Maria, Ave Maria. Alvarado sings this one solo, so they're kind of trying to get some variety here. So he's singing solo here. He sounds too far away in the mix. The Vihuela's up front, sounds great. Nice voice. And again, the same tempo. Track 10, Stabat Mater Dolorosa. Stabat Mater is a really popular prayer to set. Talks about Mary standing at the cross when Jesus is crucified. And her feelings about that. Really, the tempo doesn't change here. I think these are better as polyphonic works, really. The sound is marginally better on the voices in this one. Track 11, Vultum Tuum, oh man, Decrecabuntur. I should probably do these without drinking whiskey, and I'd probably be able to say these things, Oh, Intemerata Virgo. And this is, okay, the vocals sound a little cleaner on this track, and it has an intimate quality with the clearer voices. I really enjoyed this one. This is a religious text, a prayer to the Virgin. Last track is Josquin, Nymphe de Bois, again. No, this is different. This is that's another symphony. And then
Requiem.
Requiem, yeah. A section of a Requiem Mass, I guess. The voices sound better here. I think the singers are still lacking an immediate presence. It's like we're overhearing them from another room. The Requiem part is in memory of Akagame, who's the great composer of the generation before Josquin. All right. And that's how we end. This album is beautiful, solemn. Solemn is really the word here. None of these tracks change. There's no variety as far as that tone goes. Mm-hmm. So you can think of it as a long sort of meditation or just a quiet track, maybe for a rainy day when you want to calm down or have something going. I found it a bit bland as we keep hearing the same vocal timbres, and never mind the Vihuela. He plays well, but again, he's not really making an effort to sort of change the sound of his instrument either. He's really just playing this material, which I believe he arranged here because this is from polyphonic music. I don't know what he's going to do, so I'm putting too much on him. More variety would have been welcome, I think, for my ears anyway, in the Vihuela playing as well. The arrangements are all similar. It's a meditative album. On the positives, on the positive side, I said it's meditative and calming, probably good for late at night. So I would say give this a listen. If you're thinking of buying this, give it a listen first, definitely. Okay, just try out the first track, see what you think. The rest of the album is like that. I was a little disappointed by this, to be honest, but it's good. It's beautiful, but I don't know. It kind of didn't sustain my interest.
That's what my notes said. Overall, peaceful and meditative.
Right.
All slow tempos. Not a lot of variety other than the sort of variation of instrumentation between male and female voices. And then you've got the somewhat strange sonics. So if you're in the mood for something sparse and relaxing, this could be interesting. But
with a little sacred note in there,
note.
kind of.
I called it rather than a cathedral, it's a room sound with the vocalist sounding other roomy. I don't know if that's a word, but I just
other roomy.
Other roomy, not otherworldly, not quite that level, but other roomy.
Yeah. I don't know, but I think it's an album for the Vihuelas. He seems to be the star because he sounds clean all the way through.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, let's move on. Now, I had mentioned this is the next album is Asa Guitar. This features Philippe Jaroussky, countertenor, and Thibaut Garcia on guitar, Spanish guitarist, I think. I'm pretty sure. And Jaroussky is a French countertenor. Now, the interesting thing about this, I had mentioned Maria Cristina Kiehr has kind of like a mannish quality to her voice, although she sounds like a woman. I mean, there's kind of like a hardness to it, but she's definitely up in the soprano range. I mean, so none of that. Philippe Jaroussky is also in the soprano range, sort of.
There's not much mannish about his voice.
He's a countertenor. Yeah, now he, on the other hand, sounds very feminine. Now, countertenors generally don't sound like women. They sound sort of like men singing falsetto, though really beautifully, right, in this high register. But he actually gets some kind of there's a quality to his singing, the way he phrases.
He gets a
that
feminine,
makes him sound like a female vocalist.
Feminine musique.
Yeah.
That's our episode. So,
no, it's interesting. The thing is, in the old days, they weren't countertenors; they were castrati, really.
Ouch.
And there were also something else that he mentions in like this interview, but they got an otherworldly sound, and that was really why they would often play gods or some sort of other thing in operas. And here he actually sounds like a woman, so I think this is really a more sort of It makes me think of like Panis roles in operas where like a woman is singing like a boy's part because she has the higher voice, that sort of thing. Like I think of Cherubino in La Nozze di Figaro or something like that. So he's singing sort of in the woman's range here in his countertenor, and he's got a very feminine sound, except for when he's singing really strongly. Then you kind of hear his like the maleness of his voice come out. One complaint about this right away: there are no translations for the texts in the CD booklet. I bought the CD
because it goes through various languages in the program, right? Yeah,
they sing in all these different languages, and I looked through the book. I was thinking, maybe it's on their website. No, I couldn't find it.
And this is Erato,
they do provide the text, though, the original text, and you can find translations of them online, but it's a lot of work. You have to search for every single song.
Yeah.
But oh man, I hate that. I mean, you're streaming it, you don't have the text, but if you buy the CD, you should have all this stuff. In the old days, they wouldn't even think of releasing a vocal CD without text and translations. Anyway, not happy about that. This is on the Erato label, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay. Jaroussky in this album, he says he tries to find an interplay between spoken and sung when he performs, and the guitar brings intimacy to these songs. Thibaut Garcia, which is usually we hear this with the piano, and there's something about the piano. It's big. It's not a terribly intimate instrument, and the guitar definitely is. So it gets us a little closer to the music. And I want to mention right up at the start, Thibaut Garcia to me is the star of this album. Now, normally it's the singer, right, because he's singing the words and stuff. But I found myself just zooming in on Thibaut Garcia's playing all the way through. It's so great, this fantastic detail. He has this kind of like razor sharp sort of attack and tone, and everything is very precise with him. Okay, now I've got sort of I like this album a lot, but I have one or two reservations. Let's just take a look here. The first track is by Poulenc. Oh, another thing about this album I should mention right off, it's the track listing is really unusual. I mean, they go through all the eras. There's some unusual there's some famous voice and piano I guess we say lieder or chanson that are transposed for the guitar. There are pop songs. It's all of these popular songs from different genres, from different eras. It's
different countries,
yeah, more of different countries. It's you normally don't get variety like this on an album. This was pretty fascinating. It will turn off certain purists, and I am definitely not a purist, so I enjoyed that element of this a lot.
I think first track, especially after coming from the last recording, which is very much all of one thing. Here, you've got a completely opposite approach. You've got different eras, different languages, different styles. but you've got the same instrumentation and his
you've
guitar
also got, though,
sort of approach. I think that's what glues it together really well and makes the program flow. Garcia's
he's got a lot of variety
playing,
in his tone and his attack and his approach. He's just a fantastic guitarist, and I've heard him play on his solo albums. I've got 2 of those. He did Concierto de Aranjuez by Rodrigo, which the most famous concerto of the 20th century of any instrument, which I urge everyone to hear that particular performance if you haven't. Thibaut Garcia on the guitar, also on the Erato label. I hope. I don't have it in front. I don't have it in front of me. I seem to recall that it is. Okay, so anyway, let's go through these tracks. This is really interesting. In a way, we talked about the Josquin as being kind of like, sort of, if you thought about it, would be the color gray. This is going to be like a rainbow, sort of. It's got a lot of different colors to it. It's sort of hearing the 2 of them back to back. Would be sort of like hearing the first 2 nocturnes in Debussy's orchestral suite, because the nuage is kind of, it's clouds, so it doesn't really have much color to it. And then there's the Spanish, the Fête, the second one, Spanish festival, which has all these different rhythms and colors in the orchestra. Anyway, so let's go through these. Francis Poulenc first. Here's something you've probably never heard before. This is the title track, Asa Guitar. The guitar opening is played with the presence of a soloist, not an accompanist. Okay, so he's really making himself, Thibaut Garcia is really making himself heard here. Jaroussky's voice is absolutely womanish until he sings forte, when you can hear it's a man. I mean, you wouldn't know this is a man until he gets these really loud tones. Anyway, this is a nice work. It has like a sort of a Baroque quality to it, even though it's a 20th century work by Poulenc. He did a lot of music hall songs, and this kind of sounds like it's not like a music hall, but it does sound sort of like a popular song from long ago. Speaking of long ago, the second track is John Dowland. Come Again, Sweet Love Doth Now Invite, which is from his first book of songs, or airs. Book spelled with an E at the end. I love that. I wish we still did that.
Yeah.
And songs has an E too. Okay. Beautiful tone in this. Very catchy. And I really love the line like, to see, to hear, to touch, to kiss, to die. It's really catchy. It's at the end of every verse, so the second line before the end of every verse. It's really a catchy tune. Similar melodic lines in different verses, well characterized by Jaroussky. The guitar tone is razor sharp. Dowland never played it like this, I can tell you that. This really sounds like a soloist playing here. All right, next we have a very famous Italian song. This is one of the Arie Antiche. Tommaso Giordani or Giuseppe Giordani Sr. We don't know who composed it, and it was originally attributed to Giuseppe Tommaso Giovanni Giordani, whoever that is. This is the famous Caro Mio Ben, a song well known to all Italians. There are loads of parody lyrics to this that school children sing. They're really rude, as you can imagine. Okay. This is a big hit song. Okay, very familiar, especially to Italians. I liked hearing the guitar accompaniment in this. Usually you hear it with a piano. It suits the song well. It's an early Baroque song. Next is Francesca Caccini. Now, the famous Caccini is Giulio Caccini, and I'm kind of wondering how related these two are. I should have looked this up. I didn't. There's nothing about it in the notes. The booklet provides only an interview with the two musicians. This is called Chi Desia di Saper, Who Desires to Know. This is another catchy tune that I've heard before, I could swear. I like the Spanish-style guitar accompaniment that suddenly slows for the middle of the verse, and there's even hand clapping during the Baroque figuration between verses, which I also rather enjoy. So right away, I'm kind of enjoying this album a lot. It's got a lot of variety to it. Keeps the ear engaged. You never know what's coming next. Track 5, Enrique Granados, El Mirror de la Maya. The mirror of the maid, I guess that is. Maya, I don't know what that is. I don't know Spanish. Pretty sound here. The guitar plays arpeggiated chords, while the melody sounds like something Dowland or someone from his era might come up with. Now, this is from a collection called 12 in Spanish. 12. Tonadillas and estilo antiguo in the antique style. Do you know how? I don't know. Yeah, didn't learn Spanish. Oh, well.
I studied it, but it's...
You did, huh?
A different life now, yeah.
Yeah, right. The melodies does sound something like from that Baroque era. It's a little more emotive than music from the Baroque era, in the sense that it's going towards something a little more extreme. Baroque vocal music was, in fact, very emotive. Just think of the aria "When I Am Laid in Earth," which we're going to hear on this album, by the way, later on, by Purcell. Okay, there's some piercing, ringing high notes towards the end that leap out of the texture, and the rest of this piece is pretty quiet. Lovely melody. Granados, incidentally, interestingly, died in 1916 when his boat was torpedoed by a German submarine during World War I.
It's a tough way to go.
I know, it really is. Drowning, horrible.
Torpedoes, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe instead of tonadillas, you should have called it torpedas.
Or it might have been a German, it might have been a U-boat, I'm not sure. But his ship was torpedoed and sank. And Spain lost one of its great composers. He was really up there, okay, in the rankings after Albéniz. Okay, track 6. Now this is really interesting to me. Franz Schubert, Earl König, the Earl King, one of the most famous lieder ever. The Earl King, it's a poem by Goethe, and singers generally love to sing this because they have to do 4 different characters. There's the narrator. The story is that this father is riding a horse and galloping furiously towards, I guess, his home or a doctor to save his son who's really sick, or he's really being seduced by the Earl King, who is trying to bring him into his spirit world. And at the end of the story, the boy dies, of course, in true romantic fashion. They really love those sad endings. Hans Christian Andersen, all that. Disney changes all this. But there's a 5th character, too, the horse, who's galloping, and you hear that normally in the piano. In this case, it's in the guitar. Now, the thing is, this is a really interesting choice to play on the guitar, because it doesn't really... The rhythm sounds like galloping, but you don't get the weight of the piano, which I think is really important to put the horror of this work across. It's kind of like there's something almost gothic about it. So it doesn't have that fierce galloping aggression. It's a little prettier than it should be on the guitar. Let's see. A lot of the more tuneful elements of the Earl König's voice and the accompaniment come out here. Usually the Earl König is characterized as some kind of an oily voiced tempter. Please come, it's kind of like, think about Dracula and like Bela Lugosi, that kind of thing. And but he's sort of portrayed more about more tuneful, like he's more of a seducer. Okay, the father usually sounds manly, not really here, and the boy, of course, sounds like a higher voice. Okay, and then the narrator is just kind of like this solid voice. This is an impressive performance by Thibaut Garcia, even though I don't feel like this really comes across in this arrangement, despite the fantastic performances by both artists, in this case, I should say. Worth a listen, I would say. It's interesting. I think you should hear this if you know this piece already. If you don't, you should really hear it with the voice and piano, because it comes across better. Okay, track 7. Francis Poulenc again. Sarabande pour guitare. We get to hear Thibaut Garcia solo here, which is wonderful. This is a highly measured performance with laser-like tone and rhythm. It's a quiet piece, as the title would suggest. Garcia's approach makes the sections very clear, so you hear when when one section ends and another begins. They're really pregnant pauses before each new section begins. Beautiful performance. This is almost like a masterclass of playing a classical guitar work. Track 8 is by Barbara. Now, Barbara was a popular French singer of the 20th century, sort of like I guess you could say the Edith Piaf type, cabaret type singer. She sang popular songs as well. So did Edith Piaf. Edith Piaf was older than her. Barbara lived from 1930 to 1997. This song is called September. Barbara was the stage name of French chanteuse Monique André Cerf. Oh. In the late 1950s, she was known as La Chanteuse de Minuit, the midnight singer.
You know, though, Monique is a much better name than Barbara.
You would think, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe not to with Monique. Yeah.
Maybe not to French ears. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there is they're naming a street after her. It's just going to be Barbara Street in Paris. Or Barbara Plaza. I forget what they're going to say. But they are naming something after her there. Okay, the tune has a Satie Gymnopédie type melody. It's in 3. It's a sad song about parting on a beautiful day in September. Not quite a cabaret feel. It's more of there's some lovely harmonics near the end in the guitar accompaniment, a nice touch. And I enjoyed Garcia's lovely, gentle accompaniment in this song. Okay, next we hear Henry Purcell. Henry Purcell. You know, Americans insist we say Purcell now, but English people to me still say Purcell, so I don't really know what to do about this.
Everyone I've known with the actual family name in modern times says Purcell, but
yeah, I would think. That's what it looks like. Yeah, but he's a Baroque era guy, so they said everything differently then.
Even the title,
they spelled things with E's at the end, you know.
Yeah.
If music be the food of love, this is from Shakespeare. Yeah, this is from Shakespeare. It's a favorite of mine. I've heard this a lot. Similar to the Dowland in the building of the things. There's another one of these like kind of piling on of like the building tension with the words your eyes, your mean, your tongue, you know, this kind of thing. Catchy, appealing song. I liked that a lot. The next song, track 10, attributed to John Dowland, but probably not by him. It's a very popular song from the Renaissance era. In Darkness, Let Me Dwell. I mean, why wouldn't you think it was by Dowland? Every song he wrote was sad. Some startling dissonances in this tune, such as on the words shall weep in the line the walls of marble black that moisten still shall weep. It's a great dissonance on that. Give it a listen. And on the word bedded in and bedded to my tomb. Oh, happy days, huh?
Happy days again.
Right. This does not have a jig melody to it. Jaroussky, make sure you hear both of them. Okay, he's very good in this. He really draws your attention to those dissonances. Next, a work by a composer I didn't know about, Louise, what is this, Bonta? Okay, I gotta make this bigger. I can't see it. Louise Bonfa. Okay, Bonfa. Magna de Carnaval, the morning of the carnival, from the film Black Orpheus, Orfeo Negro, from 1959. We've heard many jazz recordings that have set these tunes or, you know, done their own improvisations on them. This is a real surprise, like the Barbara tune. A few more surprises to come. Jaroussky hums the beginning. It has a bossa nova feel to it. I've never heard it like that. I actually didn't recognize this, and I do know the film. I've got it on Blu-ray, in fact. There's a bossa nova feel to it. The guitar actually has a line in this. I don't remember this tune from the movie, as I said. Okay, next, we're getting into this Brazilian feel now. Dilermando Reyes, Brazilian guitarist and composer. Rodo de Baiana. I hope I said that right. I don't speak Portuguese. This is a guitar solo. It's active, very highly detailed, and a real gem. Why haven't we heard this before? Brazilians probably have. I haven't. It has the lively Brazilian dance rhythm, catchy melody, and Garcia plays with Brazilian flavor. A real find. Okay? Check that out. Next, now, I don't know about you, but I thought I've heard everything that Mozart had written. Next piece is by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Abendempfindung. Abendempfindung, which means like evening sensation or evening feeling. K523. I didn't know this song. It's in German. I'm not familiar with it. Hearing Mozart accompanied on guitar gives it a completely different profile. I'm pretty sure this was probably with piano. The tune paints a feeling of evening while the German text meditates on what will happen at the singer's death. It's a great follow-up to the Brazilian tune. It's like a...
Brazil to Germany.
Yeah, there's a good Brazilian life to German death. It's kind of a good contrast. Next, a name familiar to me, Giovanni Paisiello, very famous song. Hey, Giovanni. Nel cor più non mi sento. This is from the opera L'amor contrastato, ossia La Molinara. Okay, ossia means or, so it has two names. Nel cor non più non mi sento. It's a really famous song. Garcia really makes this familiar tune dance, which normally it doesn't, and I really appreciated that. He pulled out the dance rhythm to it, and Jaroussky plays along. This is one of those tunes that exposes the voice, and Jaroussky has no flaws to be heard. He even paints the words pizziki and stutziki, which means pinch and tickle, as those things are being done to, as if these things are being done to him as he's singing. So he's like me pizziki, it's like he's kind of being pinched or something there. I like that kind of sort of word coloring. Nice touch. He's enjoying himself. This is a real joy to listen to. All right, the next track surprised me too. Another surprise, Ariel Ramirez. Alfonsina y el Mar. He's an Argentinian composer, famous for the Misa Criolla, which we may have heard. I mean, I've heard this work. I remember it from college. That it kind of had a brief popularity then in the 80s. And I don't know anything else by him, so I was really interested to hear this. We get a little Spanish flavor in this one, or perhaps an Argentinian folk flavor. He's from Argentina after all. Ramirez worked a lot with Argentinian folk music. The guitar part is interesting and draws the ear along with the singer, and that's where I was focused. I thought this was really great. Next, we get two tunes by Gabriel Fauré. Au bord de l'eau, Opus 8 number 1. Hearing this with the guitar, again, gives it a different profile. It's an art song. It's a light song, too, but it sounds much lighter here than it did with the piano. Track 17 is a nocturne. Garcia makes this fresh with his well-placed occasional harmonics. Really beautiful. This is something you don't hear on the piano. Very beautiful and evocative of night. Jaroussky gets a quiet tone, though his voice is always bright in this. He's a bright voice. Next, Rossini, Gioacchino Rossini, Di Tanti Palpiti from the opera Tancredi. And this is just pure Rossini. Garcia is excellent with getting the danceability or simple liveliness out of the rhythms that can seem stale on paper. Some singers sing this and it just doesn't really come to life like this. Jaroussky gets a brief flourish in this. It sounds like a simple cavatina. It's a simple, very catchy song, not like a full-blown aria. Track 19. This is a long album. Gerardo Matos Rodriguez, La Comparsita, one of the most famous works. It was certainly his most famous work. He's an Uruguayan composer. This is a work for solo guitar. It's a tango. And his first published work, Matos Rodriguez's first published work, is a full-blooded, lively tango rhythm, a real pleasure to listen to. Garcia gets this. It's really good. All right, as promised, Purcell, When I Am Laid in Earth, which is Dido's lament from the opera Dido and Aeneas. Very, very moving in the opera with its descending bass line like a Passacaglia bass, and the soprano sings over the full orchestra. A real tearjerker of a song. Not here, though. This is really better sung by a soprano, but that's okay. We're hearing different colors here. The guitar outlines the bass line at the opening, which is going to repeat, at least suggestively, all the way through. A nice performance here. I enjoyed hearing it in this guise, despite the fact that it didn't really move me all that much. Jaroussky is understated when he sings the famous "Remember Me" line at the end. That's when all the tears start coming, when you hear that line. Not in this performance, though. It's more of it's a little more clinical, I thought. It sounds more like an art song here, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's enjoyable, and when I said clinical, I didn't mean that as a critique, or as like criticism or an insult. It's just that it doesn't, emote the way it does in the opera when it's sung with a full orchestra. And how could it really? You have all those great orchestral instruments helping to pull those emotions out of you. Paced rather fast to draw emotion too. This is faster than normal, which is probably necessary with a simple guitar arrangement. I enjoyed Garcia's playing at the end of this piece. Okay, next we have a piece by Federico Garcia Lorca, the great Spanish poet who was executed by, I believe it was Franco. Anda Jaleo, in Canciones Españolas Antiguas. So here he's a poet. He's also a composer, and he set this to his familiar Spanish dance. It's got a descending melody that's distinctively Spanish. I mean, this has Spain all over it, as far as we think of Spanish songs. It's immediately likable. Jaroussky does well to get a Spanish tinge to his vocalizing. Last track, Benjamin Britten. This is from his folk song arrangements, a bunch of works I'm not familiar with. Volume 2, France. And this is a French folk song, Il est quelqu'un sur terre. There's someone on the earth, or he is someone on the earth. I don't know. This folk song has a repeating descending bass line. It sounds like a passacaglia to me. It's a spinning song, as we know from the line Va ma roue, which repeats in every verse. Spin my spinning wheel. So it would be something that women would sing while they were spinning wool or yarn. It's sung at a slow tempo here. I expect that this song probably goes faster normally than it does here. And it ends the album on a mysterious note, which is a little unusual. It doesn't sound like it should be this mysterious, but they color it that way. Sensitive, very quiet accompaniment, especially in the last verse, and chanting playing by Garcia all the way through. So in conclusion, this is a nice mixture of the familiar and the unknown. Really an excellent program. Excellent guitar playing and singing. Jaroussky is excellent in tone and timbre, but for me, Thibaut Garcia was the star of this album. He draws a lot of musicality out of the accompaniments and has you listening to him without having you forget about the singer. Now, if you're someone who doesn't really enjoy countertenor singing, you might have to adjust to this a little bit, but it's really worth it. This is a very musical and very interesting program, performance. Everything about this is really good, I thought. And the chances they take, though they don't always work, they're still interesting to listen to.
You just described me.
Did I really?
Yeah. I don't, I'm not a big classical vocal listener anyway, and countertenor.
You seem to like the guys, though, the tenor and bass.
Yeah,
they have more color in their voice.
Just like I like cello rather than violin.
I bet you'd like altos, too, like women with color in their voices. I like sopranos, too.
I like alto better. This much countertenor is a bit much for me. I can handle it on a program.
I do sort of agree. I'm not really a big fan of I'll listen to them in operas, but the whole program is a bit much.
That said, I could make it through. I listened to this twice, based on the strength of the programming. The variety is, so interesting that the first time I listened, I wasn't looking at the notes. I was doing something else. I just put it on. I like to listen, whatever we have on the program, I like to listen once non-critically and then once critically. So, but my non-critical listen had me keep going back to look, well, what is that? Because we keep changing countries, eras, languages. So I wanted to know, because you won't get lulled into, any certain kind of frame of reference from this, because that keeps the variety throughout the program. And so that's strength. Yet they're able to, pull it off with a kind of, how can I say, continuity, because of the interaction that they have. And, it's just voice and guitar. So that's all you've got. And I like that sparseness of, content, so you can hear everything really clearly. Garcia's guitar work, as you say, is really interesting and has some surprising things in it. And I thought the performances are really nuanced. There's a lot of small, interesting things to listen to. And even though I'm not a big fan of, countertenor or all one voice throughout a program, there was enough interesting stuff there to even get me to listen right through it. So, interesting program.
Yeah, I should say to anyone out there listening who's a fan of countertenors, or especially of this countertenor in general, this is an unmissable album for you. All right, you're going to have to hear this. It's really so good that way. Okay, so we're just going by our personal taste here, so don't let us put you off. No nasty messages, please.
If we get any, we just won't do any more countertenor recordings.
Well, there is that possibility. But it's sort of like I've found that in my life, people who listen to opera are the most finicky of classical listeners, and jazz listeners are all like that. They're all kind of, the sound quality, the performance. They get really nitpicky about things, you know. In the classical world, that it's really opera fans who get really fanatical. They're hard to talk to if you don't agree with them. If you do, then they love you. Anyway, last of the classical, we have a kind of similar type of program to the Asa Guitar, except this time without a singer. This is a solo guitar called My European Journey by a very young British guitarist, Alexandra Whittingham. I hope she's British. I didn't look it up. I'm sure she is, though. Yeah. And she's solo classical guitar. This is on the Delphian label, and I've been sitting on this for a long, long time because I thought we would do a guitar episode sometime in July, September. This came out in May 28th, the end of May 2021. So I've been sitting on this for half a year, and here I am finally talking about it. I figured I'd pair this with Sean Shibe, but we never did that guitar episode, so I wound up doing Sean Shibe alone. And I finally got this one on, so I feel happy now. Anyway, been sitting on my shelf a lot. Okay, the theme of this program is it explores the guitar music of the 19th century when the guitar finally settled on 6 strings. Before that, it was all the lute, the vihuela, as we heard earlier, and it had a lot of strings. The neck was narrower in the 19th century, the body got bigger, the strings got tighter, and it could now sound deeper, higher, louder, softer, and more nuanced than any hand-plucked instrument before it. It had a lot more variety than the lute or the viola. Okay, so that's our theme, and she's going on her the grand tour of Europe here. She's playing music from different countries by different composers from different countries, and it's quite a tour, I have to say. She starts out in spectacular fashion with Francisco Tárrega, Capriccio Árabe, Arabian Capriccio. Tárrega composed this after a trip to Granada. He saw the citadel, which was converted into a mosque when the Moors controlled Spain. Despite the title, this has a really Spanish feel to it, or maybe it comes from the Moors. I don't know. Cool chords at the beginning, a gorgeous piece, very sensual and very sensually played by Whittingham. She's really starting with a strength here. She gets a good sensuality out of this. I'm impressed by this. You didn't think so? I'm going to have something to say about this later, about what you're going to say later, but in a different piece. Great presence and beautiful tone. The sound is recorded close. You get all the details and no finger squeaks, which is another miracle. I thought this was a stunning opener for the album. Go ahead. What do you got?
Well, this is what's interesting about this program for me, in that she chooses a lot of things that aren't played much anymore.
Right.
For the rest of the program. But these Tárrega have been recorded by every major guitarist. And, okay, I feel like on a debut recording, you're sort of obligated to do some of these kind of, standard things to show where you stack up. So this one and the next Tárrega also, which are, recorded by pretty much every major guitarist has recorded these. And so this to me shows what I feel is maybe the major weakness in the whole recording, which I would say...
I know what you're going to say, because I'm going to say this
is a lack of passion.
Next track. Yeah, okay. But I thought she had it here.
I don't know. I don't. That's... Okay. I actually liked her approach more on some of the other pieces that we'll get to. Yeah. Because this whole recording is not any sort of technical showpiece. Not to say that a lot of the
at the end it is. The last two pieces are.
But none of the pieces here are particularly virtuosic showpieces that she selected, I feel. There's a lot more things she could have picked, but I think they're more musical vehicles. And I think that plays to her style. What I really like, she has a completely gorgeous tone.
Yeah, she does.
Her instrument in this recording that shows it off well. There's a beautiful sounding guitar. And I really like her articulation and, her attack and the variety that she displays with what she does with her fingers. She can change that attack for a variety of effects, from a very soft approach to something that gets a completely different kind of attack and then different tone. But on these two pieces, I was disappointed at the beginning. The tempos are rather slow, and then I just felt like missing that kind of fire for Spanish pieces that I expect. But I didn't mind that kind of feeling later on in the program, but I'll come back to that.
Okay, I think I went into this, not knowing what to expect, basically. And I was really surprised by the first piece. I thought it just leapt out. Now, the thing is, what you said is, in fact, sort of what I said about this second track, the second piece by Tárrega, Recuerdos de la Alhambra. This is also inspired by Tárrega's trip to Granada. And the booklet says it has the feel of a Chopin nocturne. I don't really think so, though. Now, in this piece, Tárrega uses a tremolo effect to keep the melody solid. And I thought Whittingham's tremolo, maybe it's recorded too close, or maybe she's playing it too loud, because you can hear the idiosyncrasies of the attack.
I think it's too slow.
Not even. It's not even either.
Right. It's too slow to get to that evenness that most guitarists do it at. I listened to a few other versions I have of it just because I wanted to make sure.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And
because I've heard John Williams play these type of tracks, and it just sounds fantastic when he does it. That's an unfair comparison, because
this is a debut recording, so I don't want to.
Yeah, she's a very young.
So.
Okay, so I said this is an impressive performance of a piece that sounds really difficult. It's fluently played. The feel isn't completely right, though, I said. Some of the Spanish flavor is lost in the technical display, unlike the first piece, which I thought was more idiomatic. Now, here's the thing. I thought that the first two tracks kind of outlined in miniature what we're going to hear on the rest of the album. I liked the first track, but the second track I thought the technique got in the way. And I do agree. She is kind of lacking in passion, and I'm going to come back to that in the last two tracks. Anyway, let's move on. Jamie Bosch, Brimborion, romance from his Romance sans parole, Opus 11. He was a Spanish guitarist who went to France. He preserved the Catalan flavor of his music. The title means something trifling or charming. And the fifth and sixth strings are tuned down a tone in this, putting the piece in G major and allowing the guitarist to play heavily on open strings. It has an idiomatic Spanish feeling to it in Whittingham's hands. I liked this one a lot.
I like the tempo here, and I thought this one shows off her variation in articulation really well. You get some really nice tonal variety, and I thought that worked well in this one.
Okay, next, J.K. Mertz Elegy, one of the album's centerpieces. It's a very long piece at 8 minutes and 50 seconds. Not very long. It's quasi-operatic, according to the booklet. I get what they mean by that. That becomes more true, really, as the piece goes on. The composer, Mertz, is Austro-Hungarian. Many of his works were rediscovered by scholars in the 1980s, and he wrote for the 10-string guitar. So we're finally away from the Spanish feel here. This is a slow, expressive work in 3/4, with melodies passing from the bass to the tenor. So this gives the guitarist an opportunity to show off some melodic technique in kind of keeping the melody. Very expressive playing from Whittingham. Now, I'm using the word expressive, and like you said, it's she does lack in passion. This isn't really a passionate piece, though, so we don't miss that here. There are subtle pauses and the vibrato to wring a bit more tender emotion out of the material. I think she's very good here. Next, Katharina Josefa Praten. This piece is called Forgotten, and it's an impromptu. She was German and worked in London, where she married her husband, Robert Sidney Praten. Her maiden name was Peltzer. This starts with some complex harmony, but smooths out after that into an appealing melody in 3/4. It's pretty. It's a little short. Sixth track, Frederick Rung, Humoresque. And he's Danish, a conductor, published a series of guitar miniatures. This one is very brief. It's dancey and comical in its hesitating pauses. Whittingham has the sense of humor to put this across. I was very happy to hear. This is a nice little piece. Track 7, Napoleon Coste, Le Départ, Fantaisie Dramatique, Opus 31. This is another long piece at 10 minutes. It tells a little story. Coste was a French guitarist, and he played an instrument with an unplucked seventh string that lent extra resonance to the other six. This piece was written in 1856, and so it was inspired by events of December 1855, when French troops returned to Paris following the siege of Sebastopol in the Crimean War. The work also references their initial departure for Crimea. It has a grand opening marked Andante Largo, then there's a bugle call, and then the return of the marching army. The grand opening is a bit somber, after all the army is departing. At 2 minutes and 10 seconds, we hear the bugle call. And then there's a complete change of character in this section, well characterized by Whittingham. She's good at doing happiness and joy. She puts that emotion across really well. The return section starts at 4 minutes and 20 seconds with a squarer sounding rhythm. It sounds like it's in 4. It's not a march. I might think military. I always think I'm going to hear a march, but that's not the case here. It's all pretty easy to follow as Whittingham provides pregnant pauses to draw your attention to the changes in this 10-minute work. Next, you get to some shorter pieces. Ernest Shand, Legende, Opus 201. Ooh. Man, some people wrote a lot of music. A pupil of Katharina Praten, who we heard above. He wrote Britain's first guitar concerto and became one of its best-known music hall acts. And this does have a bit of the melodic music hall quality to it. Lots of decorations. There's some warm humor in it as well. The two notes following the two harmonic notes. They're two harmonic. And then there are two chords. It's really cute.
I thought this one shows off her tonal attention very well. The gorgeous sound she gets. So.
Yeah, I wrote that she feels really at home in this, and I guess she would. Mm. It's by a British musician who worked in the music hall in the early 20th or the early 19th century. There's a gentle warmth to her shaping of the melody. Ninth track, we get another piece by Ernest Shand, The Gnomes, Opus 77. This is a descriptive piece with a lot of suspensions in it, and it has the feeling of a gnomish dance like you'd hear in Grieg. All right, now here's where I start to have some trouble. The tracks 10 and 11 are both 11-minute works, the two longest works on the disc, and they're both by Italians, although one of them is born in Switzerland. He may be Swiss. These works require virtuosity and passion, and I feel like Whittingham kind of lets down the side here, although she does play them very competently. Legnani, let me go through this. He was born in Ferrara, Italy, but was associated professionally with Ravenna, and he tried to cultivate a guitar technique that would see him compared to Paganini, but he wound up sounding more like Chopin. That's not a bad thing, though.
No, just kind of different target, though. But
it's kind of like you aim at this target and you hit another one. It's kind of like throwing a ball, like bowling, and you throw a ball into the other lane and get a strike in that lane.
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right, there's a lot of lyrical beauty in his music, and the word facile, this is called Fantasy Brillante e Facile. It means easy, and this is not easy. Okay, he just called it that to sell more copies. That's such an Italian thing to do. Especially from that era. All right, it's in two parts, a spacious introduction in A minor and a playful allegro in A major. The relative major, not the relative major, losing all my music vocabulary here. What do they call that when the major is the same as the same note as the minor?
Key. Usually you're going to go from major to minor, but so this one.
There's a name for it though when they're both the same. I can't remember. Parallel. So C major, the relative minor would be A minor, but this is it's killing me. I'm going to remember it later. I hate this. If only I was still in school, I'd know. Anyway, this starts with slow strumming, which gets interrupted by more agitated strumming on a different chord. There's a lot of build-up of tension in the introductory section. Very exciting. The main section begins at 2 minutes and 5 seconds. It's lively and has that sprung Italian rhythm. Bright, sunny, and energetic. And then sections follow, all of them with catchy melodies. Okay, so Whittingham, when she plays this, she has the smile that the music requires. She has good energy, but I feel like this could have used a lot more fire. It's a difficult piece to play. I can hear a bit of the effort she's making in the playing, and that's going to work against pulling this piece off. These lines, when you hear melodies like this, they need to be tossed off like they're effortless. I mean, you're seeing this instrumentalist do this amazing thing, and he's got to be like, it's nothing. It's so easy. You know, we're not getting that from this performance. That doesn't mean it's a bad performance, but it is lacking in fire. She gets the sunniness of the music, though, which is very appealing. So there's a real like Italian sunshine and smile kind of feeling to her playing. I thought the performance was a little, it was a little staid, I guess. You have to throw caution to the wind in a piece like this. But she's very young. I am sure she'll get there.
By the way, as I had said under that, is parallel minor for that.
Parallel minor, right? Thanks. Yeah. There you go. That's what I was looking for. Okay. Oh, I gotta remember all this stuff again. I feel good when I know these things. I feel like I'm back in school, like thinking about these things all the time.
Back in school.
It's so good. Anyway, last track, Giulio Ragondi. Introduction and Caprice, Opus 23. This guy was born in Geneva, raised by a guitar-playing Italian who later abandoned him in London.
Ooh, what a bad place to be left alone.
I don't know. Not even left alone. Jeez.
Wow.
Okay, Ragondi became a renowned performer. Didn't seem like it hurt him too much. I don't know. Yeah. This piece has two movements exploring the minor and major tonalities of the same key. Again, parallel major minor. A slow adagio in E major and a lively allegretto in a minor. He's going backwards. He's going to the minor in the big section, which eventually goes to the major again at the end. This piece requires constant virtuosic display. It starts slowly with widely spaced melodic notes. There's some pretty naughty figuration in the intro, which is very appealing to the ear. It's very catchy. The main section starts around the 4-minute mark, and there's quite a bit of tricky figuration in the melodic lines, this time at high speed. Okay, Whittingham, good player that she is, plays with precision, but again, lacking in fire. Okay, you really want this to just sound effortless, even though it's not. She does a lot of slight pauses between phrases that worked so well in bringing emotion to the front of the shorter pieces, but it's not so effective here. In fact, a lot of the tension and release really depends on knowing when to slow and when to speed up and when to, play louder and softer. And I feel like she mistimes a few of those runs here. It doesn't really work for me. There are all sorts of subtle tricks used to put passion across, and I'm not hearing them so much here. A mature artist is necessary to put this work across. And again, she's very young. I'm sure she'll be doing this one day, probably soon. She has a lot of necessary elements already, but not the whole toolkit. In short, this is a very enjoyable debut performance recording. It's got a lot of unknown guitar works that I was delighted to hear. Yeah, and I agree with Russ that she's lacking in passion, especially in the last two works.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting program for a debut. I mean, she starts with the sort of requisite Spanish pieces, I thought, and then she moves on to some surprising things that don't get played very much. So that's an interesting programming choice. I really do I love the sound of her guitar. It's beautiful, and I really like her articulation, the differences she has in her attack and how that changes the tone. As I said, I think her approach is a bit too measured and calculated, sometimes a bit dispassionate. I think she's erring on caution.
I think that's what you do, when you're kind of,
She's erring on caution because she wants this to be perfect. And in, some senses, a lot of it is really perfect, but I think, it misses a bit of the fire that will come, as she...
well, that depends on her, really.
I think, I'm sure it will.
You think?
I mean,
sure it will.
to get recorded. She get a lot of attention. I think she has, she built a following. I read about her on YouTube and things like that.
She's really attractive.
You see her picture? And that's a thing too, so.
Yeah, that always helps.
Or it helps, or it puts an added pressure on, And I feel like, in any genre of music, people who get a lot of attention when they're young, they're in the spotlight early, and being in that spotlight.
She's been to school. She's in her 20s now, I'd say.
Still, that's young.
Yeah, it is young, but it's not like a teenager like someone like Anne-Sophie Mutter playing at 14 years old with the Berlin Philharmonic.
Yeah, you know what I mean, though. You can't fake maturity. You can copy things. You can emulate and things, but those sort of, honest, deep, emotional expressions of things, I think those take time. And so I wouldn't fault any young player for not being able to put those across in any genre. Not that she's lacking in any of that. I think it's really excellent debut recording.
It's excellent programming as well. I really like the idea.
Programming is really good. I mean, it's much better than having just picked all pieces that everyone has heard before. And that not only does that set you up for more, comparison with other people, but it's nothing sort of interesting in the program of itself to listen to. But she's found these pieces, some of them I haven't heard before, so I really like that mix of sort of taking a chance with some new things too, and but just a gorgeous guitar sound. And
yeah, she's a beautiful sound. So I think it's those elements, the sound and the whole feel, that kind of got me in track one. I was expecting a lot less, so I think that kind of
I have
surprised me.
To me, my musical approach to playing music and that I enjoy, those are the most important things, right? Your tone, whether it's your voice or your instrument, the tone is the most important thing, because if you don't have a nice sound, no matter how technically proficient or anything else, no one's going to want to listen to you.
A lot of people are technically proficient,
Yeah, but she has a gorgeous sound, and I really think she has a nuanced the touch, and that's everything in guitar, because you're actually making the sound with your fingertips, and I can sense that she has a really keen sense of what her fingers do to change that tone. And that's really special. There's a lot of really good guitarists technically who are boring in the tone that they play. It's not as interesting as what she already has here, I think. So I don't want to sound too harsh on this, because I thought it's really what she does.
She's very young.
Really
it is an excellent debut recording, let's say, but she's still got some ways to go.
And but she's young, and if she's got this much of a sense, I don't know if she was the sole selector in this material, but if she continues to find these kind of interesting pieces to record in the future, that'll be not only great to listen to her sound develop, but also if she finds more and more music that needs to be recorded more. Let's hear it.
Yeah. All right. Guitar classical. Now on to guitar jazz.
All right. I've had a bunch of guitar recordings sitting around for a while.
Yeah.
They're going to all be launched here tonight. And we're going to start out with, all of these are really cool. But we've got Mr. Craig Brann, and he's got an album on SteepleChase record label called Past, Present, and Future. Now, Brann is a native of the great jazz city, Windsor, Maine. No, that's a joke. Anyway,
no, he's not, he is from Windsor, Maine.
He
is
from Windsor, Maine.
Joke.
Yeah, but and if you see Craig Brann, he has that good old country boy kind of look to him, but he's been in the New York jazz scene since 1996. Here he's in trio format with Nick Morrison on bass and Rudy Royston, who we've heard a few times, an excellent drummer who sounds great here too, in a trio on this release. And it's all original tunes on here too. So he's showing off his composing strengths, beginning with the first track called 2020, which I guess it could be the year or the vision, or both. We don't know. This one starts out the tune with kind of an ascending figure that builds a tune around kind of an alternating riff and that ascending line based on the beginning. There's some nice breaks in the melody for Royston to fill in, and he keeps a busy changing beat throughout. And right away from the first track, you're going to get a feel from what Brann can do on guitar. He's got really fluid chops and great agility in his playing that shows up right away in his solo out of the melody here. Another thing that sort of typifies his style, he can fill in chords easily anytime there's a gap in his melody. So he doesn't need another guitarist to back him or a pianist. He can be playing a solo line. There's a little pause in the phrase and the chords just effortlessly come in there, or at the same time as what he's playing. So he has that sort of he can accompany himself basically really well. He makes real long running lines that cover the range of the fretboard. He doesn't just stay in one sort of region. He's up and down, getting a big range. He returns to the tune chord shape after his impressive solo, and Royston gets some time to show off there as well in the fills. Morrison mainly adds kind of syncopated figures to Royston's groove on the first tune. The second tune on here is called Someday for SG. I don't know who that is, but it's a slower tune. Brann plays gentle chords on this one. He's got an intro line, and he uses some tremolo, so he's got the bar going. That's an integral part of his sound to get a little bit of a pitch variation, and he uses it really tastefully, not too much. He works in the melody, again, keeps the chords filled in when you want to hear the harmonic bass that he's working over. Morrison keeps kind of a heartbeat going underneath this one. Royston's got some nice cymbal textures going. About midway through the tune, it breaks into a swing, and Brann weaves a kind of mix of relaxed and speedy lines. He uses some really interesting interval ideas and builds off from them as well. He's a very imaginative player. He's got a real creative sense for melodic ideas. Morrison gets a solo here as well. He doesn't have a big bass sound, but he does have a nice tight attack that helps him show off kind of rhythmic ideas. On the end melody, Brann finishes with, again, some kind of tremolo pitch play to end things up. Track 3 is Elijah Boy. It's a tune with a really cool stop-timey bluesy riffs that's sandwiches another section of descending figures. Brann shows off his speed and articulation variety on really long-flowing solo lines on this one. Royston gets a nice solo spot too after Brann's solo. So it's kind of a cool track. Number 4, Victorous. This has a drum intro from Royston. A bass riff comes in, and then Brann joins on with some chordal figures. The beat settles into something like a samba. Brann mixes in lots of complex lines while adding chords underneath again. He finishes up with a melodic phrase, then gives Morrison some space to solo, and Royston keeps busy, inventive beats throughout the whole piece. 5, A Waltz and a Prayer. It's kind of a slow country waltz tune. Brann plays out the gentle melody, and this one has kind of choppy chords that he gets going underneath at the same time. Morrison gets a melodic bass solo on this one, and Brann comes back for some more melodic improvisations. There's a lot of space in this slow tempo, and Royston's tasty playing adds just enough hits to keep the rhythm interesting. Track 6 is called Inverso. We've just had a waltz. Now we get kind of a 6/8 tune. So keeping that kind of 3-beat feel. This time it's 6, though. It's mid-tempo. Really nice cymbal work on this one from Royston. Brann weaves relaxed, creative lines for a good 5 minutes. He just goes on and on. He never runs out of ideas. And then
I was impressed by that for this whole album, though. He really does have. He's another guy with a lot of ideas, sort of like David Kikoski on the piano.
Really, I mean, whenever I play, jazz solos, like I always think, you think, did I just repeat? Did I play that before? I don't think Brann ever has that problem. He's just like lots of ideas, endless creativity. And Morrison gets some bass on here too. Track 7, Irv's Nerve. Nice title. It's a minor blues with a stop time kind of feel in the drums and bass in this running riff by Brann. Morrison gets the solo first on this one. It's when you hear the intro riff and the melody, you think it's going to be, kind of just standard bluesy thing. But Brann doesn't stick to just bluesy ideas on this. He gets a full creative workout of ideas on this one as well, playing through all kinds of harmonic sort of ideas. 8 is called And He Goes. I don't know where he goes, but this one's a softer and slow tune. More subtle solos by Brann and Morrison. Nice contrast. And we end up with 9, Avian Azure.
Okay.
This one has rhythmic bass intro. Royston gets a slow beat going then, and Brann starts with some slow chords for an intro. Then he gets off to some really fast runs, signaling the changes to come. Once he starts soloing, Royston doubles up the beat to a fast pace. Morrison gets into a really fast walk underneath that. And Brann really shows off his speedy chops on this one. There's some really fast technique going here. Morrison gets a little rhythmic interlude over Royston's cymbals before they bring the melody back to wrap it up on an unresolved chord at the ending. So I enjoyed this. My first listen to Brann, but he's got gobs of technique and the imagination to go with it.
Imagination. That's really what I said about this. Is
he doesn't. He's not just showing off. Everything he does, utilizing his technique, is highlighting really cool new melodic ideas, going places with his solos. They're very imaginative. Also, his original tunes, they're intriguing. And this trio communicates really well together. They're listening to each other and great interplay. So, great guitar jazz. Check this out, past, present, future.
Who knew Maine was such a happening place?
I mean, He's got at least 3 other releases, maybe more, as a leader, and I'm going to check them out as well.
That was... I think that was the most straightforward jazz guitar album that we heard of these 3. And I really enjoyed his ideas as well, and his little fills too. He gets these really tricky sort of little figures in his melodies I noticed one thing he likes to do is he'll play the solo or whatever melody he's playing spare, and then when he goes back to it later, it'll have a lot of little curly cues in it, just a little more detail, embellishments. I really enjoyed that approach.
Good. And I should say,
the ideas are great.
I didn't comment enough. He does have a really nice tone too. A great instrument sound too. So
electric guitar, by the way, we're now on electric guitar.
There's this huge. I don't know what the make is. It's a really big hollow body. You can see it on the album cover with the the F holes, and it's really cool. Matches his whole sort of persona. Yeah. All right.
How about that?
Next up, also on the Steeplechase label, Puzzle People by Nate Radley. So Nate Radley, guitarist from Concord, New Hampshire, another big jazz town. There's New England dudes here, right?
They're taking over.
Yeah. But Radley studied music at New England Conservatory, great music school, where he graduated in 2000.
But not a jazz school, though. It's a classical school,
legit
mostly.
Classical school.
Yeah.
He went to New York a few years later, and he's got his own trio active there. He's recorded with a lot of other famous jazz musicians, Dave Scott, Greg Osby, Chris Potter, John Hollenbeck, Billy Hart, Seamus Blake, and a lot of others. And he's currently a member of the jazz faculty of Princeton University as well. So he's made quite a career for himself. On this recording, he's got Jay Anderson on bass and Adam Nussbaum, a very veteran jazz player, on drums. And he's a very interesting concept to me. Also, a really cool guitar tone. In addition to his great jazz chops, he brings in sort of bluesy rock kind of tendencies and some country sort of sentiments too. And
this kind of reminded me of the 1950s a lot. That kind of guitar sound, or if anybody heard like the band Jeff Tweedy was in before Wilco, like Uncle Tupelo, it's got that the sad, lonesome American sound, the wide open spaces. He's got a bit of that going. And
some of the sentiments, like a few months ago, we did a Charlie Ballantyne's new album. So sort of jazz guitar with a bit of rock edge to it, but in the trio with acoustic bass, that kind of same concept, which I think works really well. And so here we're going to get a mix of interesting originals and very interesting choices of covers. So we start out with a tune, Invitation to the Blues by Roger Miller, a famous name from pop music. And this tune was actually, I think, a charted tune for the kind of country singer Ray Price going back to 1958. It's kind of a slow shuffle. It's got an intro that has a kind of alternating bluesy riff. The tune is bluesy, but it has some unexpected chords that Radley chooses.
Harmonies, I say.
His solo has really interesting articulation. That's part of his style. It's a mix of clearly articulated shorter tones and chords with fluid phrases. And so, he mixes up sort of longer and shorter tones to interesting effect. He also mixes in a lot of bluesy and rocky ideas and bends into this tune. And after his interesting solo, they go back to the riff of the tune, and Nussbaum gets some time to work around the drum kit. You can check out the original version with Ray Price on YouTube. There's a black and white video of it. So this is
Another thing he likes to do is end like on the inconclusive seventh chord, without it just kind of drifts off, sort of instead of getting a full tonic stop. Yeah, he does that on a lot of tracks.
He gets just enough of kind of a distortion sometimes that to make it interesting in tone, and he will also use a little bit of tremolo when he wants to throughout the recording, and I find those kind of palette of colors that he has for his tone is nice. Track 2, Sing Sing Overkill. This is his original tune. It's a cool syncopated bass line opening, light drumming, tasty chord work by Radley. He likes to play chords a lot too, and it's not like when he's playing chords it's just like boring backing. His chord playing is really interesting too. I like it as much as his lead work. It just makes you want to listen more. This is a bluesy tune, a few interesting chords thrown in at the end of the verse. The beat gets a nice slow chug feeling going along. Radley has some cool lines in his solo, but as I said, when he switches over to chords, it's just as interesting how he's going to articulate them and flip the inversions of the chords around. Anderson has a nice chilled bass solo on this one. Again, when they come back to the tune and get back to the chords, for that one, there's some more space for Nussbaum to mix up the funky beat a bit on his own. 3, we get a really cool cover that you would expect to hear this way.
Very familiar sounding, too.
Every baby boomer or Gen X who is listening to older tunes on the radio will know this tune covered by sung by Connie Francis, Ted Snyder tune, Who's Sorry Now?
Did you know this song was also in the Marx Brothers movie, A Night in Casablanca?
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
really?
Neither did I.
Wow.
I don't even remember hearing it there.
Yeah, I know that movie,
but the Connie Francis version is so like ingrained.
Yeah, ingrained.
Don't think of it.
It's a real.
It's been covered by a lot of people.
Americana thing there. Radley opens this one, keeping the bass line and chords going himself under the melody. So he's doing the whole piece, and then when they get to the second verse, Nussbaum and Anderson join in. It's very subtle. It sort of just fills in what he's already got going. It's a very nice, spacey, relaxed feel. It continues throughout Anderson's bass solo, which is up first. Radley plays extremely quiet chords and accompaniment underneath. He turns the volume almost all the way down under the bass solo. Which is really interesting. Then when Radley comes for his own solo, it's tasty, lots of melodic phrases, cool little bends, nice articulation with short notes and phrases, and there's a cool, tasty ending for it too. So an unexpected cover done in a unique way. I really like that.
Unexpected, though, it does fit. It fits perfectly into the whole 50s rock vibe of this album. So it's really, in a way, it's surprising, but it's not a surprise at all at another level, It
just matches his style. Now we've got an even older tune, I'll See You in My Dreams, Isham Jones, originally recorded by Isham Jones and the Ray Miller Orchestra in 1924. It's got an original repeating riff idea that he adds, and that's his own arrangement. As soon as the melody starts, you'll recognize this famous tune.
You may recognize it because you heard the Pat Boone version, which is the most recent one.
I mean, there's been recorded by so many people,
including Mario Lanza. He also did this. Maybe we'll hear Freddie DiTommaso do it one day.
Wouldn't surprise me. Radley mixes in some overtones in the phrase gaps of the melody. It's really cool. Nussbaum works some faint, tasty brushes, and Anderson gets a tasty melodic bass solo here too. When Radley makes a solo, it's kind of interesting. It's got these disjointed notes and phrases that he starts out with, but then he ties them all together as he goes through. And Nussbaum works it into a more kind of driving swing beat. After another soft turn at the melody, Radley gets some nice freer solo ideas in before the end of the tune. Interesting sort of flowing of ideas in this one. Track 5, another Radley original, Kamikaze Frisbee.
Nice good title.
This is a cool minor bluesy tune, a busy kind of 8-beat feel, but it changes to a swing bridge. So it's one of those tunes that has that change up in it. It's got that kind of secret agent man progression.
I said that too.
Going in that. If you know
that was my note
Johnny
as well.
Rivers kind of
same
thing. Yeah, it's got that guitar in the right tone from that era too. And Radley shows a more fluid, jazzy soloing here with lots of fast lines. The melodies always have really good direction and connect up with what he was doing previously. He's a soloist that really makes you want to keep listening to what he's going to do next. Nussbaum gives excellent drive with the cymbals on this one, and he also gets an enthusiastic solo after Radley. Track 6 is another cover, Golden Earrings by Victor Young. This one has a drum tom intro, ringing note figures from Radley. It's a pretty minor melody, and Radley's melody and chords and Anderson's bass line, his working together with a nice descending bass line. They sort of just sync really well. Radley's solo here is jammed with ideas and rhythmic repeated phrases set to the subdivided groove that Nussbaum works up. And then Anderson gets a rhythmic solo with some rapid fire notes and glissandos. as Nussbaum gets some different cymbal tones and kind of muted things for fun. And then he gets some more space for cool beats when they switch up, coming back to the melody. Track 7 is the title track, Puzzle People, a Radley original. It's a fun rising and modulating melody on this tune. The bass drops out as Radley starts improvising freely over Nussbaum's changing rhythms. Anderson joins back in, and a fast swing chase develops. The beat and feel constantly change. It morphs into a bluesy groove for a while, then it disappears for an interesting kind of interval-centered solo by Anderson. This all hinges on great communication and adaptation to the players here. This is one of the most free-formed and adaptive tunes here.
It's interesting because the opening material doesn't really sound all that promising. It's kind of like a TV commercial theme, right. And then they kind of go off and come up with those really interesting variations on it.
Yeah, and so this turns out to be the most sort of free-flowing of all, and it gets back to just a snippet of the original melody to close it out. 8. Another Radley original, Bubble Trouble. It's kind of a mysterious melody of arpeggios and sliding chords. Radley starts this one out soloing with some restrained phrases that are answered by Anderson. Nussbaum plays light and crisp underneath it all. It works up into a more intense groove. It gets quiet again for an Anderson solo. This one. And the final track here is the Horseless Headman. A great name.
Fantastic title again. He's good at this. He's good at naming
things. Another Radley original. Yeah. This is a gentle melody. This is like as you think, the Headless Horseman or anything, a horseman. This one has this kind of Western kind of atmosphere to it. And this is the most kind of composed straight piece. It's just a gentle melody. He uses a lot of tremolo and slides at the end of the phrases.
In fact, the whole track has the tremolo effect on it.
And he just plays straight through this one. It's only 3 minutes long. It's more atmospheric with like these lonesome sounding melodies out on the prairie kind of thing over these chords, and he gets in some overtones.
It's got the sad, lonesome sound, the sad, lonesome American sound.
Yeah, to that. So it gets a bit of, prairie Western thing going. It's a really fun and interesting release. Radley's solos really pull you in. You want to listen to all of his ideas. The original tunes are interesting, as are the arrangements of the cover tunes. Kind of an interesting mix from really old kind of material. I enjoyed the space and the breathing room and the adaptive rhythmic exploration. Great interplay between the musicians. Highly recommended guitar.
Yeah, you don't expect to hear an album like this when you think jazz guitar. It really... It was almost cross-genre. You know what? It got me thinking about, the Delphin Lamar Organ Trio album, because it was kind of like, in the way that's a jazz album, but it's not really a jazz album. This is like a jazz guitar album, but it's not really a jazz guitar. It seems like it's another genre, or it could be. It's leaning towards that.
Radley clearly has big jazz chops in his improvisations, but he's got rock and blues, sentimentalities,
a lot of different feels.
And then the material that he pulls from Americana and then that whole spacey sound in there, it sort of crosses all these kind of genres. It's very American sounding, but in a really good way. Yeah.
The sad, lonesome sound.
Yeah.
Think Blue Moon by Elvis. That'll give you an idea what that is.
There you go.
Although the guitar sound isn't on that one. There are others.
Right.
Okay.
And finally, an album that got a lot of anticipation. This is, from what I read, one of Pat Metheny's favorite guitarists.
Interesting, because he does sound a little bit like Pat Metheny at times. I'll mention that when it comes up. Yeah.
Mr. Dave Stryker, his latest release, it just came out on Strike Zone Records. I guess that's his own affiliated label, As We Are. And this features Dave Stryker, the Nebraska native. Another
boy,
jazz
is everywhere.
Yeah, but he's been in New York for 40-some years. He's got 30-some recordings of his own albums, as well as long associations in the past with Stanley Turrentine, Jack McDuff, saxophonist Steve Slagle. And here he is with Julian Shore on piano, the great John Patitucci on bass, and also another name associated with Chick Corea, Brian Blade on drums. A fine cohort of musicians here. And what makes this this recording interesting and also gave me cause for worry is it's an album with strings.
But not a string orchestra. That's really important.
A string orchestra. Yeah. It's a string quartet. Featuring Sarah Caswell, who also takes some solos on the album on violin 1, Monica K. Davis, violin 2, Benny...
And I knew we were in good hands when I saw her name, by the way, Sarah Caswell.
Benny van Gutzet, viola, and Marika Hughes on cello. So, jazz guitar album with strings. From what I've read, this is something Stryker's always wanted to do, and he had a lot of passion for this project.
Well, first of all, when you say this is something he always wanted to do, what do you mean, play with a string quartet?
Yeah. Having this and arrange thing was like something he had really looked forward to doing from what I understood from reading it.
Okay. Sounds good.
So we start with just a string piece, actually. It's just an intro to the album called Overture. It's just 1 minute and 10 seconds long. So a 1 minute intro piece on string quartet. It's got a yearning quality to it, modern in the classical sense of the word. Harmonies, I thought it has like a Bartók string quartet 1 kind of, feel to it.
Yeah, thought, okay.
In a way.
I said it was tasteful. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, I guess, yeah.
I mean, it's not Mozartian. It's, it's
it's more definitely more 20th century.
20th
but it's
century
not like,
kind of thing.
It's not like mid 20th century.
No. It's a tonal but adventurous in harmonies. Yeah. And so it's a short piece that leads to the second track, Lanes. This one starts with a complex even beat, repeated syncopated bass and piano pairs of notes. And the strings come in and they play a kind of sustained role underneath that. Stryker plays some opening melody and then it quickly switches to a fast swing, only to switch up the rhythm a few more times. Very adaptive rhythmic feel here. Stryker solos fluidly. He's got a really deep guitar tone. Blade and Patitucci mix up the grooves, have a lot of creative action underneath his solo. There's a rhythmic breakdown in the middle of the tune with piano figures that Blade gets to fill in underneath with some nice artistic drumming. Shore has some sparse piano soloing before Stryker brings the melody back. And throughout the whole tune, the string arrangement kind of swells in and out depending on what's going on with the rest of the arrangement. Track 3 is called Riverman. This starts with some mysterious kind of high violin string and other sounds in the background. I guess it's
harmonics playing
kind
on the
harmonics. Like a water-themed natural environment evocation. Stryker brings in some...
a bit ghostly, really.
Yeah, it's unnerving, kind of, Stryker brings in some rubato and sparse notes before Patitucci comes in with this real loping bass line in a 5/4 time signature. Stryker stays down in the lower register with his melody, which contrasts with the strings that come swelling in above. And Sarah Caswell gets a violin solo here. She plays with soft attacks and swooping lines, kind of matches this river theme.
Stryker a combination of country and classical, really, her solo. I kind of had a bit of country feel in it.
A little bit of country, too, yeah. Stryker, she has a really interesting tone.
Caswell, you mean?
Yeah,
interesting tone. Violin, okay, yeah. Okay.
Stryker comes back again. This time he mixes some bluesy figures in a really relaxed solo. And behind all of this going on, Blade has some really nice cymbal textures that create an ambiance.
I wanted to, this is the one that I thought sounded a lot like Pat Metheny when he gets his solos. This is when I thought of Pat Metheny specifically here. It had this airy, glidey quality to it that Pat Metheny's music has, but I feel like, Pat Metheny reaches these levels of just joy and ecstasy that really doesn't happen here. It may not be what he's going for. Yeah. But
it's a bit more subdued.
This reminded me a bit of Pat Metheny when he took his solo here.
What else is going on in this tune? Shore just has some sparse lines over Patitucci's pulses, and then the tune kind of fades out in that same mysterious sound of the beginning for kind of
the harmonics.
Yeah, the harmonics. Track 4 is Hope. This is kind of an even rockish beat with a bass pulse on this tune. The chord changes are kind of uplifting. They're ascending and reaching. They kind of match the title of Hope. I guess that was what he's going for, this kind of uplifting feeling. As are Stryker's phrases in the melody that he puts over that harmonic backing. Shore takes a piano solo that focuses on rhythmic figures. The lines are well connected. And when Stryker solos on this one, he also makes the most of the kind of rhythmic figures going on in the backing of the tune. Patitucci gets a short bass solo. He gets a real cool rhythmic thing going on.
I dug this.
But his sense of attack and pitch are really great. He hits, bass is acoustic bass doesn't have frets, right? So you imagine this big woody instrument. Sometimes bass players are, they're not always exactly on the pitch. Patitucci is like always spot on, and he has this great clear attack, and he can play with the pitch just a little bit within one note, just by rolling his finger a bit. And he gets some really interesting, amazing things going. That depends on being, just having that perfect touch. Let's see. Then Stryker brings the melody back. They vamp quietly over the strings before the end of this tune.
Pretty serene tune. I guess Hope is a serene
nice
feeling.
Arrangement.
Yeah.
5, Saudade. I guess that's how you say it. Yeah.
Saudade. It's a memory. It means a memory.
Saudade, yeah. It's a slow bossa nova beat introduced by Stryker on the guitar. Shore adds some sparse piano figures as the strings and blade come in on the drums. Stryker adds more melody, and Patitucci brings on the bass. Stryker brings up the intensity in his solo nicely, passes it off to Shore, and after a repeat of the melody, it comes to a false ending on this tune, and then Stryker and Shore go back to the quiet intro style to take it out. So a little kind of Latin Brazilian feel on this one.
Yeah.
Track 6, One Thing at a Time. Patitucci comes in walking hard on some very mean-sounding bass right from the beginning with blade drumming. Shore and Stryker work on the melody together on this, which has a lot of breaks and twists turning through the ideas. The strings swell through the arrangement in the gaps of the melody, and it's all swinging for the solos. Shore has a nice one, and then Stryker, who finishes off with a series of overtones. And then Patitucci has a really awesome busy solo on this one. The arrangement gets thick with rising figures and strings, and blade has a lot of nice filling in the gaps, and then the whole thing mellows out to the end of the tune. Track 7 is called As We Were, the title track here. Actually, this is... let's see, As We Are, but this is As We Were. So,
right.
Yeah, not really the title track, but alluding to something. Lush string arrangement in the intro. Stryker comes in.
Remind me of the Debussy string quartet, by the way, the kind of sound. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very lush
same
kind
tone. Not the same melody or anything like that, but it had that tone.
Stryker comes in on the pickup notes to the melody for this tune, which is a slow ballad, and he gets some really thick double stop figures, which always sound cool on guitar. The beat comes in and goes nice with Blade's cymbals. Patitucci has a really thick and resonant solo. It's like, it's like molasses gooping out of the bass on this one. Yeah, it's great. Stryker brings the melody back with some more lush strings for the end. Nice tune. 8, Dreams Are Real. Stryker introduces alternating phrases of 6 and 5 notes, as if like questioning and answering himself for this kind of motif. Patitucci comes in below. Stryker goes to the melody as the strings and blade join in. And Stryker has a nice solo on this one. He gets into some modes early on and then switches over to some bluesy phrases. There's long lines of string interlude with Shore ending, adding interesting piano figures. Track 9, the final track is called Soul Friend. It's a loping, slow, bluesy melody that's played together by Stryker and Caswell on violin. And Caswell solos first. She's really feeling the blues here.
I thought she sounded a bit like Stefan Grappelli here.
Yeah, the swooping, bluesy riffs and lines. Yeah,
it's kind of light. It's kind of that. Yeah.
Stryker's bluesy too. But he gets in some ripping fast runs in his solo. Just when it feels like he's chilling out, he comes back with another great bluesy string of phrasers. And then what I like here, as I said, string arrangements on jazz albums, at least through this whole album, they haven't been too intrusive. They sort of come in and swell in and out. But here they actually use the string for something really cool. So after Stryker's solo, he and the strings get kind of this pizzicato vamp going. So, he's doing very staccato kind of fingering. And so the strings are pizzicato, except for the cello, which gets like a longer line in contrast. So it's a really cool usage of the strings with the guitar. And you've got that one legato note of the cello. That's great. And over that, Patitucci comes in and jams out with like this really bluesy bass solo. That's a really nice use of the strings.
Big, fat, aggressive solo. It sounded great on the bass of all instruments too.
Over that cool guitar and strings arrangement. That is really unique. And so after that repeat of the melody, Stryker gets in some final cool note flurries to close things out. So, although I'm not usually of a fan of strings on jazz albums because they usually get a little syrupy or overdone, this is rather nice. Very tasty playing by Stryker, and as you would expect from Patitucci and Blade. Shore doesn't do a lot here, but what he gets in is really tasty. The string instruments, the arrangements are interesting. They add some interesting possibilities to the arrangement, especially in the last tune, as I mentioned, rather than just backing. And Caswell's solos are a nice kind of extra sound and tasteful as well. If playing with strings in a way was something Stryker wanted to do, I think he pulled it off really well here, and you get a high level of musicianship, nice tunes with variety, good arrangements overall, and with these musicians, the level of interplay is really high, so they're communicating with each other really well, and that sort of free-flowing changes up in rhythms happens a lot in the middle of the tunes.
Yeah, these tunes they're pretty spacious. I kind of thought like that. But for me, I found myself listening more to Patitucci than to anybody else. I just liked his whole sound on this. I guess that's inevitable for me. I don't know.
Yeah, he's got that thickness and the clarity of attack that sounds so sure. Like, he exactly knows the road he's pounding down, So, yeah, he's...
Yeah, I like this enough. I don't know. For me, the strings... They were good, but I mean, I think I prefer them not to be there, to be honest. I don't know. It's just personal taste, really.
I don't want to say that because I know that's why he made this, but
I know, right?
I can always do without the strings on most jazz. I mean,
I think that's always the case with
Bird
me,
with strings, that's about it. But
at least they were tasteful. It wasn't like the Mantovani orchestra, because I used to hate that. Yeah, when they would do that, to kind of take all the aggression out of a jazz recording back in the day. But no, this was nice. It kind of,
for me,
a little more intimate with the string quartet.
Yeah, as I was saying, like I don't mind a little bit of string, or like I like a lot of Tom Harrell's recordings where he just gets like a cello in the mix with some other instruments. You have like a bass clarinet, trumpet, and a cello. A lot of interesting things can happen. But once you get a lot of strings in, it's sort of, the arrangement has to be kind of locked in a bit, and then, so, yeah. But, well done here. So of these three, I think any jazz guitar fans, you've got some interesting stuff here. Brann's album, this guy's a monster technician with great soloing ideas.
And great ideas, yeah.
Yeah. So you're going to like that a lot. Radley's, I just like his concept. He's got the chops, but his sound and this sort of evocative Americana and 50s rock kind of thing that he brings in with, these cover tunes and his originals. Yeah, it's really cool. And Stryker's got something else going on here, and you got Patitucci working with him too. So this should be something for everyone who likes jazz guitar from among these picks.
Yeah, and I tell you, I'm all guitared out. So I think there'll be more guitar records coming, but not next week, please. I need a break.
Yeah, we need a break from guitar. What should we do next week?
I got a few ideas.
All right.
Still not up to anything 2022 though. I'm not there yet. Coming soon though.
Are you all plucked out?
I'm all plucked out. I don't know. What do I want to say here?
Pluckered. Picked over. Are you fretting? Are you fretting about all the guitar music?
I'm fretting about all this guitar music.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll come up with something different for a theme for next week as we get closer to our anniversary 50th episode.
50th episode, and then 52 is going to be 1 year, I guess. Well, 52 years and 53 would be a year. Would be the circle, close to the circle, yeah.
Well, anyway, that's a special coming up over the spring, so we'll be
we say 50th episode, but there's also our first anniversary episode coming up in shortly.
Well, I guess we'll have to combine those.
Coming soon.
Yeah, it's about the same time. Yeah. So
what do you think? Champagne for that one, or we're just going to go for the same old bourbon here?
Let's do the whole course. Get together.
Let's start with one.
Yeah.
The next day it's just going to be a big hangover.
2 meat. Last time was too much. This time we'll have 3 meats and 4 kinds of booze and and 6 recordings. 3 meats, 4 boozes, and 6 records.
I want to say something to teach the listeners a little bit about Japanese culture. Japanese people will often say that they have 2 stomachs. One of them is for dessert. And I remember, being out with a girlfriend, and she would going out to eat with her was a real pain because she just made me fat. She would absolutely
was she
demand.
A great big fat girl?
No, she wasn't. She was like this sexy slim thing. Okay. And we would go out to eat, and she would always order something, and I couldn't order the same thing she ordered. She would order what she wanted, and if I wanted that, no, I had to order something else because she was going to let me try hers, and she wanted to try mine. So first of all, I couldn't eat what I wanted, right? Anyway, so we do that. I eat mine. She eats like a quarter of hers. She's full. She can't finish it. And then so I wind up eating all of hers too. So I've eaten like 1 3/4 meals. And then she takes the menu and she's like, "Oh, it's time for dessert." And I say to her, "I thought you were full." And she says, "Oh, Japanese people have 2 stomachs. One is for only for dessert."
If Japanese people have 2 stomachs, how many do Americans have?
I don't know. We just have one big
just got one big one.
We haven't learned that trick.
Well, yeah, I guess. Oh, well, so much for cultural differences.
Yeah.
Anyway, this has been episode 46, your guitar specialty episode from Adult Music, the podcast with music for the mature mind. And once again, please do follow or subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to us on. Please give us a ranking or write a review. Or if you want to get in touch, please send us an email at adultmusicpodcast, all one word, @gmail.com. And we'll be back again next week for episode 47. So keep listening until then.